This episode was brought to you by Beyond Pride. When you advertise with First Nations, make sure you advertise with pride. That's pride spelled P-R-Y-D-E. For more information, go to beyondpride.com. Creators Game Ep.29. I'm Daya Miller.
Jay Smith.
Chris Vale.
And it hasn't been a complete full week. It's actually only been like, 5-6 days?
We're all over the place.
Yeah,
We're on a roll, though.
Saturday and filming on a Thursday again. So,
Yes, we are on a roll. We're gonna keep her going, and then of course we got Ganawage coming up. Who's excited? We're gonna do a bunch of pre-rolls. We're gonna do a whole bunch of advertising before we get started. We got the hunters over there.
I show you the back, but might have children watching.
So what's everyone been up to?
Yesterday I went to like a whole event in Brampton for CCM. That was pretty cool. I got to get on the skates, try out some new products, and
You say it's
fun time.
skates?
It was like a CCM like hockey event.
Oh,
like they
okay.
tell you about like stuff for next year, what they're coming out with for the new
play
season.
hockey?
Not really, no. But I did all right. I was kind of a little worried. It's been a couple of years since I've been on skates, and
All right, let's find out about Chris. What sports did you play growing up?
basketball, soccer till third grade, then football, and then football throughout till all through high school, and then lacrosse. I played like basketball in school a bit, and then 8th, 9th, 10th grade I did wrestling, and then
Ooh, we got a wrestler over here.
yeah, and then
Low
I was
center of
able to just,
gravity?
like soccer when they're younger, kind of right.
That's why he's growing that much.
The only hockey I did was playing ball hockey in Brantford, and we won my first ever season playing, so it must have been me.
What a legend. What about you? I think you played more than hockey, right? I know you played hockey.
I played hockey. I played a little bit of basketball. Played lacrosse. A little bit of football. Mostly just for cheerleaders, but it was short-lived.
You guys know what? I played football. Do you
Cool.
believe it?
I do.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie either. I was just a lineman. I believe that I was not the running back or the quarterback. I know I look like a star quarterback, but
A star quarterback, he says. I was defensive end. I actually played with Danny Weiss and Waylon Bomberry. Those were my two people who were in my class that year, I guess, who I played on the team with. But let's get right into lacrosse. So a lot has been going on. Has everyone gone to every single game just like me? Because I've been to every single one.
I've missed a couple. I didn't get to the Arrows game on Bread and Cheese.
like you said, days in the bird nests, slinging tunes and watching the games.
I'm
And
so they're slaving
scouting.
away.
Rebels played at home last night.
Tuesday. They 8-5. What do you think? A low scoring game, 8-4. But
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Like it was a low scoring game, but like it wasn't it wasn't a low scoring game. The Rebels actually did very well. It was a high scoring game. I can't remember exactly the score, but again, I feel like the Rebels can do better. And I was looking at the lineup, and I did see some of the people weren't playing that game. So.
did they have suspensions from the Saturday at all?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm wondering how many suspensions did they have, and let's talk about that.
At one point, I had heard they had 7 guys suspended, but I'd also heard there was going to be appeals put in because some of the guys that were getting 5-minute major penalties and kicked out of the game weren't even involved in any kind of altercation. They were on the bench or they had the trainers tending to them, and then all of a sudden their numbers getting called, they're getting kicked out.
And for those who don't know about this altercation, can you just explain a little bit about what happened in Orangeville?
It was, from what I'm told, it was a mess. Parents have reached out. I've seen social media posts, and there was a picture, and at one point there was 9 Rebels in the penalty box and 0 in the penalty box for Orangeville. So if these kids are getting penalties for fighting, who are they fighting? Are they fighting each other? Are they fighting themselves? Because Orangeville had no one in the box. So if you're going to give somebody a fighting penalty, where's the guy that he fought? Shouldn't he get a fighting penalty too? So we got to drag Rosie back on and ask him, what about that relationship or that lack of Six Nations versus Orangeville? You can't tell me there isn't something going on there. There was complaints about the officiating. I guess there was a couple of brothers that were officiating that I'm told that shouldn't happen. Brothers shouldn't be officiating, but I've seen it. Like I've seen games where there was a dad coaching and his son was reffing and stuff like that. Brother reffing, other brother coaching. So I mean, lacrosse is as big as it is also a small community too. So the same families are involved, but then to me that doesn't justify why this happens, and it just conveniently happens with certain teams. we've used to have issues with the Rebels in Orangeville before, the Arrows in Orangeville. And I get it. They're passionate about the game. But when a referee, in my humble opinion, when a referee or referees, and I know there's a shortage of them, so I'm not picking on OLA officials in general, but when there's a couple referees that think people are paying $10, $12 a game to get in there and watch them, something has to change. I mean, how do you justify nine players from one team in the penalty box and none from the other? How do you justify that?
Like you said, there was the Stealth had a whole incident there, right, to start the season when they played the Junior C Orangeville team, and there was hearings. I guess they go back there tomorrow, too, so I'll have to see if anything else comes back. But even there's the defensive coordinator for the Rebels had a picture up where he's like, I guess I'm coaching these water bottles because all there was the one backup goalie on the bench and all the Gatorade water bottles lined up. I happened to see him Monday, and I said, hey, were those water bottles listen better than the players, or how was it coaching those? How was it coaching the water bottles?
But yeah, with that many people in the penalty box and you still have to put some on the floor, the bench would be pretty much empty.
Yeah, it didn't look like there was anybody besides the other goaltender.
Yeah, and then like we were like,
and
we've been talking about this how many episodes now, like that relationship with like Orangeville and Six Nations, and you would think it would get a little bit better. I know there's going to be that tension. There's kind of like there's going to be even more now, I guess, because a little bit of the show and a little bit like, but rough
too. I understand scheduling, but you figure both times the Six Nations Stealth play, Orangeville Northmen Jr. C, both are at the Tony Rose, and then the Rebels one game versus Orangeville is on the road. So what's the odds of all their games being in Orangeville? Would they get a little better calls if they were playing here?
And then also like, would the Orangeville players even play the same? I don't know. Like, how do they play? How were they from what you guys heard of the people who attended that game? How was the game in general?
They said that like somebody was saying how they got up 3 goals right away, the Rebels, and then the shit started kind of the chippiness and then the bad calls and getting thrown in the box.
There was pictures. Well, I know you can't hear a picture most of the time anyways, but there was pictures posted on social media of the refs talking to the Orangeville head coach, and fans are saying that the Orangeville bench staff was making the calls, and the refs were just basically, yep, that's a penalty, and arm up. And I'm like, how do you do that?
Well, yeah, I can see that happening because even on Six Nations, sometimes you can see the refs favor Six Nations officials, like some of the bench staff and stuff like that.
I have yet to see that.
I don't know. I can see it from up there in the DJ booth sometimes that like a ref will come over and be like, hey guys, I've given you 3 warnings. Hey guys, like I've given you your chances, and there's a lot of chances. So like I can sympathize with the refs. But like
I've seen dirty, you know what I mean, not like you said, trying to be unbiased, where I've seen, you know, even a Six Nations player hit a guy high, you know, have his stick in it, and then, whoa, what was me? Why did I get called? You did something dirty, like, you know what I mean? Or it was a bad play where, like you said, most refs are good, and they want to just kind of keep the game rolling. It's not every call. Like I had when we did coach the field years ago, the player kept bringing his stick up way high, and the ref was kind of warning him, and he kept bringing it up, and I was like, look, man, I know you're not trying to hurt that other player, but every time you bring your stick way back, it looks like you're intending to try to hurt somebody. So then you got to, at least if you're going to check them, bring it to at least your waist. Don't bring it so far back. And the kid's like, yeah, no problem.
And then also another thing that I hear, you know, being up there so close to all of the players when they're yelling and stuff like that, is a lot of them will be like, hey, this is junior lacrosse, or this is senior lacrosse. This isn't minor anymore. So like a lot of these coaches are not the coaches. Sorry, a lot of these refs are probably still reffing as if, you know, they're reffing minors.
And that's something I think is an issue in all of North America, because like I said, growing up in the States, like my dad, and he reffed a bit and stuff, and he would always kind of say the strike zone is the strike zone no matter really where you are, right? In baseball, where how we would go to reffing classes, and they say, oh, if you're reffing the 7-year-olds to the 10-year-olds, this is a slash. But if you're doing high school, this is a slash. And then the pros can come way back here. So it's like they kind of get more lenient as the years get older, where he was always like, oh, baseball, it's a strike zone no matter what age group you are, right? Major leagues on down, and how lacrosse is more officiated like that. And like you said, that was complaints I heard when the Senior C League, right? Jay probably knows of this, of them trying to get refs out. They would get guys that would ref maybe a U11 game on a Wednesday and come out and ref men on the Saturday and kind of make those tic-tacky calls where it's like, hey, we usually let that go in men's lacrosse, and we aren't the kids.
I get it. Again, like I said, I'm not picking on all the officials in the OLA. There certainly are a few that do make the game better. They're fair across the board. Don't matter who they're reffing, and I appreciate those guys. There are some, admittedly, I don't think they'll admit it, but I've seen favoritism, and then there's some who just don't care. They'll call whatever they're going to call, and at the end of the day, you deal with it. We had one last year in Senior B quit on us mid-game, and the chirp that crossed the line, so to speak, was, I'm paraphrasing here, go back to minor. That's what the chirp was to the ref, and so the ref took his helmet and whistle off and threw it in the Rivermen bench and walked off.
Does it get tough too? There was a guy years ago from Peterborough reffing Peterborough in the Man Cup, and they joked about partying, kind of hanging out with the team afterwards. And somebody was like, "Doesn't that look bad? You're the ref in that Man Cup game, and you're from Peterborough, reffing Peterborough. Then you're hanging out with the players after." He's like, "Oh, it's all right. I wasn't in any pictures or nothing like that." But hey, like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you have that? Like, you know what I mean? If a guy's from, he could be a good ref, but hey, you're from Peterborough and you're reffing a Peterborough game, like. You know, especially at the championship level, maybe like you said, sometimes down here, right? Young kids, they could be from Six Nations and go to the GPA, or Neil Hennock. He's a good ref. He refs a lot of local games, and
he don't take no shit either.
Yeah, so I'm not saying like you shouldn't ref a local game being local, but especially at a Man Cup level, how do you get the hometown guy refing?
We've had refs from Six Nations that have ref Six Nations games. I know. I'm thinking of one in particular who, to show that he was not biased, was actually calling more penalties against Six Nations teams for quite a few years, and it was his way of proving I'm not favoring Six Nations. In fact, we were getting more penalties.
And like you said, and that's not fair either, him doing that.
Yeah,
right?
because
like,
now what about even some of the refs who, like, you know, they low key, like outside of lacrosse, they don't mess with you, and now they're taking it out on the team and stuff like that.
Oh,
you know, like,
you see it all the time.
And like you said, you see it in every sport, or even like I was watching the NBA playoffs last night. The guy was like, Pascal Siakam was yelling at the ref, and they're like, he clearly fouled him there. And then, but players are always going to bitch, and coaches are always going to bitch, and then it's just as long as the refs are at least doing their good job, like, you know what I mean, and just like at least trying to make it, don't be as biased, right? But like like you said, I'm sure there's definitely been refs that come here and like, I hate these guys, or a Six Nations guy did this to me back in the day, I'm going to get him now. I'm sure that happens.
Well,
right? Like,
a prime example, one of the Rebels brass had made a social media post, and it said something along the lines of, we need officiating like Dale Sett. Shout out to Dale Sett, former referee on many levels. Made friends with him over the years, and him and I have we have some banter back and forth. And we were in Whitby. I can't even remember what level it was, midget or something like that. And he was coaching or reffing, and when he ran by and yelled at him, and I said, "I've seen better refs at Foot Locker." And Dale stopped running and he bent down because he was laughing so hard. He turned around and he said, "That's the best chirp I've ever heard." So now when we see each other, that's what we greet each other with is, "Hey, Foot Locker, how you doing?" But Dale was a great ref. He was fair across the board. And if he blew a call, he would make it up later. He gave me an example, but I'm not going to go on here and say it. But he tries to even out the game.
And like you said, too, is it maybe nowadays where they're so worried about abusive official where even when a coach is just trying to get an explanation, the ref can be, you know, pain in the ass, and hey, throw him in the box or throw him out, where you kind of still need that good relationship of, hey, I'm not like why did you call that? Because you're trying to feel the game out, or is it going to be a rough game? Are they going to let things go? Because then that's when players are trying to figure out how they got to adapt to the officials. Yeah,
well, I said it episode or two back. Coaching midget, Dougie Jameson was our goalie, and he got threw out. And he got threw out because he asked what the call was, or he said something else too. It probably wasn't the worst thing he could have said, but it probably wasn't good either. But he didn't even say it to the ref that gave him the penalty. He said it to the other ref because he said, "What did I get a penalty for?" And they were back and forth. Dougie got tossed, and I said, "Can I ask what the call was?" And the only response I got was, "One more word out of you and you're gone too." And that's all I had said is, what was the call?
I was a part of a game in 2011, Genesee Community College, before they became anything good. They were just like, that was the first year they ever went to the semifinals. The year before, they had a guy with his goalie dangler playing attack, so they weren't nothing. And that year, upstate New York and Herkimer is kind of in the middle of nowhere. So like, I think some of those refs would come from Syracuse and stuff like that. But the game started with one ref and then a student kind of helping out, just kind of like, hey, can you just kind of make sure if like saying who the ball gets out, who it's going to be on kind of thing. And then that ref came finally late. It was a good game. I want to 8-8, 7-7, something like that. We're in overtime. We lose the face-off. Their like pole comes down, shoots, it goes wide, and our goalie and their player run to the corner, and they gave it to Genesee, and our goalie said "fuck." He didn't even yell it that loud because you didn't hear him like from the bench or anything like that. But he was like "fuck," and they called him for unsportsmanlike conduct.
Just for swearing?
Yeah, took him out the game. And then we put our cold goalie in, and they went man up, and they had this guy, Connor Latimer, Christian Reiler. He was a Salmaker guy. They had some good players then, and then that Latimer was an Oshawa guy, so they just had started kind of getting more natives and Canadians that year. That was like their kind of pipeline starting, and they fucking beat us right away, right? Like just like, 1-2 passes, scored our cold goalie. He was good too. He went to Coker. The starter went to Limestone, and yeah, we got fucked. And then you should have seen, and like that ref, like they try to tear into him. Our face off, and one of our midfielders, brothers drove all the way up from Long Island, and he played Division I lacrosse or Albemarle. He ran right into that parking lot. He didn't punch anybody or anything, but he got right in that ref's face and just was like, how disgraceful is that? You don't make it to the second period, quarter, and then you make a call like that in overtime, and like
let him have it.
Yeah, he let the guy have it for sure. And like there was talks on Facebook, but we kind of got screwed then for seeding for the playoffs because of that. And then that was the start of Genesee, first ever time they ever beat us, and then they went off for kind of ripping up some years. Pal of the right guys won the championship after that, but yeah, they were shit. But then, and that was kind of the start of that. They weren't good. Like, yeah, they were, like I said, they had a guy on a goalie dangler the year before. We beat them by 20. So it was like that year they had gotten a couple good recruits, and then then just a testy call, and I don't know that ref's name or anything like that, but Dan Moriarty's brother definitely let him have it in the parking lot. That was for sure.
So let's get into game 3. What is everyone's predictions for game? We already know. I already know everyone's predictions. Actually, really.
Is it in Buffalo?
I'm like Russia. Like can they upset them? But then you just feel like that bandit land atmosphere.
Let's do a couple what ifs. Let's entertain the idea that Sass is going to come on top.
Like you said, Austin Shanks. Like when he turns it on, he turns it on. What do you have? 6 goals. The game 1 versus Halifax. Then he came on at the end strong, having the game winner versus Halifax. He had a bunch of goals. Was a big part of them winning the other night. And like I said, I think too, maybe winning the draw. Both faceoffs, I forgot to say, are both Long Island guys, the Naso and then Farrell. Do you kind of winning the draws?
Do you think that the game kind of depends on who shows up the most for the goalies?
Is this the kind of like has been the talks of, because
like we're gonna get into this?
Should the NLL almost have a 3-second rule like basketball? The centers like, or 5 seconds is 5 seconds NBA is in the paint, the center can't just clog the paint
in the key.
Yeah, because you literally have guys like Paul Dawson in the crease standing in front of. He's not just standing there getting hit with the ball, right? How they always say he's blocking shots. He's literally
he's like the first. He's the first responder.
He's
the first thing the ball is.
He's a firefighter, so he's the first responder, and he's a former NLL draft pick as a goalie in 06. So like they literally
he knows what he's doing.
So they have pretty much two goalies, right? And then it's like, and that's what everybody's kind of pissed at, right? Or is it like, if you play Buffalo, are you going to shoot it right at that guy? And like. At the end of game 1, Holden Garland jumped up, and he jumped up from way far out and blocked it with his arm, right? Like it was a nice play, and they had a couple of, like, these guys aren't playing goalie, they're just like jumping in front of the shots, where the Bandits literally play like 3 different goalies and then have Vino. What I thought too was Buffalo finally gets beat, and did they get kind of testy there? Were they all kind of, were they butthurt? Like you figure McKay and Priolo and all those guys, at the end, right, this game was over, he made the thing, the next thing they're like, oh, Priolo's in there crushing Garland, and then McKay's in there, and I'm like, man, they lose once, and then they got all heated up at the end.
It says a little bit about the character,
right? Like I'm like, and like I said, it was just like, you win, but when you lose, can't you lose with a little bit of grace, right?
Can you lose with a little bit of grace?
It's rare.
It's rare.
Right?
But was it a strategic loss? Now they're home in Buffalo. All that money's getting
they're making Pagula some more money.
And it's probably going to be sold out, right?
It already is. I saw it announced on Instagram.
Why is it a 4:30 game? That's what I was surprised about. I didn't know if
again
4:30 on a Friday,
Saturday.
Who scheduled it? Both teams have to agree. The league has to agree.
Yeah.
The arena rental has to agree. Like, there's a lot of people that have to agree.
No, definitely. I was just wondering.
But who scheduled it? Who pushed for that time? Because when is Saskatchewan flying into Buffalo? Are they there now? Mm-hmm. Or are they coming in Friday night and haven't adjusted to the time zone yet?
Because like I've said, there's no that arena, right? They're playing Sabres hockey. They're long gone golfing, and do they have any is there?
I'm sure. I don't think
there's a con, especially 4:30. I don't think there's a concert at nighttime, right? So, but like I said. And it would be nice. I mean, the Rush have won so many times, anyways, in years past, where it's not so Cinderella.
What does the owner say to the team if they lose? Mm-hmm. Right? Everyone's been everyone loves the Bandits, so everyone wants them to win. But what does the owner say? I spent all this money, got you all these houses. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, it'd be because then they would have lost because it's 5 straight years with that COVID, with those 2 COVID years, kind of the 2020 season getting canceled and no 2021 season. So they 5 years straight with the 2-year hiatus in between. But losing in 19, then they came back and lost in 22, 123. So then it would almost be are you a dynasty because you're 2-3, or would you rather be 3-2, right? Of being that kind of dynasty. Are you LeBron James or are you Michael Jordan?
Do you think there are more people who are wanting the Bandits to win, or people who are just cheering for the Bandits to lose, just so there can be a reset on the Monopoly board, and there can be all right, we're gonna have a whole bunch of trades next year. It's gonna get really interesting. Bandits finally ain't number one. We got someone new up there. Do you think more people are cheering for that scenario, or more people are cheering for no, we just want the Bandits to win? We're super cool with the way things have been going.
Locally, I feel I hear besides maybe those diehard like a Halifax fans, I feel maybe they wouldn't want the Bandits as much. But it seems like a lot of people are in Rock fans, but it seems like a lot of people are still rooting for Buffalo.
I'm rooting for Buffalo just so they can have a championship team, because we all know the Bills suck.
And the Sabres, right, are golfing. So that's everybody wants to Buffalo. That's all they got really is the Bandits. Well, in the winning circle. Yeah.
So what about what else has been going on in the lacrosse world? Anything other than of course the final game? Any other thoughts on that?
How about tonight too? Chiefs playing Peterborough. I guess a longer season, so they won't have that bread and cheese. And then we play a month later. They kind of get right back into it tonight.
What kind of exclusives do we got about tonight? Who's gonna shoot tonight?
I think it's similar, probably to that lineup of Monday, and then Peterborough. I guess their big pickups was that Warren Jeffries. He's a good D guy, and then that Brad McCauley. But Chiefs just beat him last year when he was on Victoria, and he finished out the season with Rochester. So I guess they, like we were talking about last pod, they lost some guys. So I guess that's their kind of big pickups along with Nick Rose.
Well, our guy Rosie made his debut last night. Mm-hmm. And they played. Who did they play?
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And
so Peterborough played last night.
On the nice, the Riptide, as we were seeing on Twitter, live on, right? Because all those teams are playing on the New York Riptide turf there and Whitby.
Yeah.
So how did that game end up? I don't know anything about that game.
Peterborough won. It was, what was it?
I don't think it was 2. I seen a couple of, it was a Kiernan's goals highlights. I don't know if that one was on YouTube or not. I didn't really get the check yet.
I actually saw the final score, but I can't remember what it was. I just flipping through quickly. But Peterborough beat them I don't know.
Does MSL need more promotion? Because that's a thing. It's tough unless you're really, really hardcore following. I didn't even realize they played last night until I seen some of those highlights today. Could they kind of we talk about the PLL having good media, the NLL's getting there. Do these MSL teams kind of need their own media stuff to kind of get more? Like I said, there's fans of the Chiefs. Like I said, we also felt the San Diego, Arizona, California, even just recently. So they got a big fan base, and maybe some of these other teams, they have NLL guys on them. They can kind of maybe draw a bit with these YouTube games and stuff.
I do know that some of my Rivermen will be in Chiefs jerseys again tonight, as they were on Monday. So I know who I'm rooting for, obviously. I just hope they don't get hurt, because Rivermen have a two game weekend this weekend, so we need them. We need them back healthy.
We talk about Buffalo, but I was maybe hearing some rumors that Philadelphia Wings and Rochester Nighthawks may be looking for new ownership this year. I don't know if it was in the lease of their contract with the Bagulas of they own the arena, and then when kind of Kurt started Halifax, where Rochester stayed as an expansion, maybe the Pagulas, and maybe they're also the league's trying to get away from the double ownership that there was rumors last year they were trying to sell. So it looks like again this year they're trying to sell the Nighthawks.
What does that kind of look like to sell a team? Like, again, I know nothing about selling a whole franchise.
I think starting the franchise in the NLL, there was like a thing that you needed. Is it $10 million? Kind of like a buy-in.
Well, and Rochester is it might be unique in the sense that I know prior anybody that wanted to own the Nighthawks also had to own the Americans of the AHL.
And that's what's on Kurt, right?
Yeah.
Kind of had both.
And there had to be agreements as far as, and I think it's with a lot of sports teams, agreements with the facilities, the arena. You have to sink X amount in and into the building itself, stuff like that. Like you see all these places, like Buffalo Bills just built a brand new stadium. Do you think the city of Buffalo would just build a stadium for the heck of it, or
no? Like you said, there's the tax write-offs, and then there's like the Bagulas putting some money in, but then New York State's putting money in, and probably helps now that the governor in New York State is from Buffalo. I'm sure that kind of.
And the thing is too, if you got a lot of money and you own a sports team and you want to put it in a certain community, you expect that community to help because you're bringing a lot more revenue to them. So like pitch in a little bit.
Because I'm assuming, do they own the building where the Sabres and Bandits play at the Bagulas? I know for sure they said they had bought and then renovated the Rochester Stadium, which they own the Americans because they own the Buffalo Sabres.
Isn't it the HSBC or HS something?
It's switched from like that first. It was like first Niagara, then weren't they a Scotia something
it's
too?
It's switching because of sponsorship.
Yeah, and that's money. That's where like
somebody sponsors these buildings. Like was it not KeyBank?
Well, that's like they say before even fans kind of hit the, like in the major sports, like where lacrosse should hopefully be someday is these guys are raking in money with the TV deals, the merchandise deals, and the sponsorships of these arenas before they're even getting known. Guys are even buying tickets, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where lacrosse maybe with the merchandising and these TV deals and different things can kind of get there.
Well, like I wonder why the Chiefs haven't gotten to that. Like, they could have merchandise. They could have licensing deals with these players. They could be like, hey, we got Dane Smith. How much are you willing to license your likeness and image so that we can create some type of product? Some type of product that can be sold. Are you like those conversations need to be started because then you can start to find out how much someone's willing to do that for, and then you can be like, oh, okay. Then you can take that and be like, oh, okay, what are we going to market? How can we market this? How can we make it so it's profitable? So this whole team, so we can take one player, kind of like just take a whole business structure around one player. It wasn't until Michael Jordan came into basketball that he kind of like switched things around where it was just like he was the face of it. And there was more money being thrown at it because of just, again, he's African American, and at the time they only had like white players. And he was the first one who'd be like, no, I'm going to be the black guy I'm going to be the face of this. We need like somebody to be the face of it.
Well, too, is like,
and I'm not saying it has to be a black guy or a white guy or a native guy or anything, but we need somebody to be the face of it and start marketing it.
Like with him, he was the first guy where it was Converse. Like they had Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas and all those guys too, but it was more or less like they were you're wearing our shoe, like Converse, like you're sponsored, but you're wearing our shoe, where Jordan it's Jordan brand. And that's maybe sometimes with some of the players. I see Great Dane has Great Dane hats, and they look cool and stuff, but does he sell them? Or, like you said, a lot of these players try to do stuff on their own, and then after a while, a lot of these things fail, where maybe these teams are maybe some of these players should go out there and hire maybe somebody in marketing and be like, hey, I want to try to make some extra cash while I can. Like, can you help me kind of brand my name out there, and let's use this. The closest really with marketing of things was, let's say a guy, Mark Millen, he was a legendary lacrosse guy. He used to run Millen camps. So it was kind of making a thing, but it was like Mark Millen's camps, like Millen Lacrosse Camp, and then he'd travel around maybe doing 50, 60 camps a year in different states and stuff, do a week in New York, do a week in Long Island, do a week in Maryland, like, and then, but he was marketing his name as like Millen, like, oh, I'm going to Millen's camps, where nobody has really with the merchandise yet or anything like that.
But like someone's got to do it, and it's going to start with like, you know, a lacrosse player is going to become an artist. It's going to become an athlete. It's going to become a comedian. They're going to have a life after lacrosse. They're going to become a commentary person. Like whatever it is that they're going to do, but you just have to there has to be something else.
Would you say? Let's say this one. What do you think of? They say, is it tougher doing that stuff in a lacrosse community like here, where you hear the stories about guys trying to start their own camps locally? Like, hey, I want to rent the ILA out for a week, and they barely get enough kids signing up, or they kind of are starting their own, you know, their names and numbers and stuff, and it hasn't gone as far kind of doing it locally, but then they go to Connecticut and get 200 kids to sign up.
Yep.
Is it just and like you hear, it is tougher because right around here, it's your dad played this and your brother played this, or learn from your cousin, where you don't really got to pay that guy $200 to kind of train your kid, because you got enough guys in your family that can train your kid.
Yeah, it's so like, just Six Nations, we're privileged with all the players that we have down here, that you could see like the biggest lacrosse player and you'd be just like, oh yeah, he's a regular. He's from Six Nations.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, hey.
Look,
and then some other kid would be like, oh my
look how
God.
like a guy like a Lyle Thompson, like he just walks around, nobody's really bugging him, where if he goes somewhere else, right, you know, he's getting hounded, where and that's a cool aspect around here, right? But I just mean, and you hear that from the guys, hey, like, yeah, guy wanted to do his own camp, got enough kids to sign up, but then you go somewhere else and then 200 because they don't really expose to that, right? Which is a lucky thing too for around here.
Yeah, it's just like, we always talk about growing the game and all that stuff. And I love talking about the marketing stuff. I just think that something needs to be done, because a lot of these players have a lot more power than they're actually using. They need to utilize. They have voices, they have likenesses, and they have images, and they have built it up just as much as the NLL have built it up. And start working together, they can be a lot bigger.
And we've talked before about contracts and different things and even these players, they'll tell you like they represent themselves. They don't really have their own lawyers. Like I think there's some guys. There was a guy, I can't remember his name exactly back in the day, but I think he was like a lawyer, had a law degree, repped some players, or another guy, maybe he reps like some minor hockey guys, and maybe he does a lacrosse guy or two and looks over the forms. But like you said, a lot of these guys, they just kind of, with no training, look at the contract, all right, here, boom, I'm playing, I'm getting paid, and where maybe they're not getting taken advantage of, but maybe they're getting a little taken advantage of, where if they actually had somebody looking stuff over and wasn't doing it all themselves, they can kind of maybe make more money. Or like you said, a lot of these athletes have their agents, their assistants. Not saying these guys are going to have assistants and stuff, but maybe somebody that could just help them along the way.
It has to start somewhere, though.
Yeah.
It has to start somewhere. Like, what would you say? You actually have a son who plays lacrosse, who people are willing to pay for him to play. Like, what type of like business, if you give him any business advice, do you give him, or would you give him, or who would you send him to be like, hey man, I think you're actually worth more, or hey man, I think you should go here, or like, just like, who is an overall general person that anyone can go to on Six Nations or even in lacrosse that you know about?
The short answer is, my kid has started his own little lacrosse business. It's about 5 or 6 years old, and he does put on lacrosse camps, and he has people that come for one-on-ones. He makes all the deals himself. And I had kind of given up on giving him any kind of advice career-wise, because he's going to do what he's going to do. And that's with most young players. They're going to do, like Chris said, just sign the contract and get paid. He's doing what he's doing for him. There's been times when, like, he plays for a team in the Can-Am League. Do you think I really wanted him to go there? No. But he's not going to listen to me, because he's going to go where he's going to make something out of it. And he is. So the short answer is, I'm not going to give anybody any kind of career advice, because chances are they're not going to listen if somebody else comes along and tells them something, the same thing, just with bigger words. So for me, dollars and cents sometimes don't make sense.
But like you can even take this another step further, and even in a younger age. So like when a lot of these players are thinking about like, oh, I want to go to school to play, and then when they say I want to go to school to play. What about the learning? What if it doesn't work out for lacrosse? What if you get there and you know what, you find out that like, hey, you don't even like your teammates, or hey, you end up getting to the NLL and you find out it's not what you want, and then now all of a sudden you're just like, well, I went to school and I don't have anything to show for it.
Well, that's on them.
But no, but it's no different than like giving business advice, giving life advice, career advice. It's all the same thing.
I've been through it with a lot with the same son, and what a lot of kids don't realize is because there was a big rush with Sid Smith and Cody Jamieson going to Onondaga, then Syracuse. Every kid down here wanted to do that. Wanted to go to those specific schools, not realizing that you need to put the grades. You need to put the grades in to get accepted first, and then when you get to these schools, you have to keep the grades to even play. And then for my son's little adventure at college, he broke his collarbone, and we soon found out that although we had medical insurance, it didn't cover X-rays, and X-rays were $800 each, and they were taking 3 at a time of his collarbone. So basically, he was told to come home to heal, and he could catch up on classes, but he wasn't going to be able to play. So he was going there to play, and he had a decent GPA, but at the end of the day, he didn't want to go back because it was a horrible experience. Because there's funding that sometimes falls through. I was having to sell stuff to send him money to eat. So it's big dreams, and for those that can fulfill it, live it, and get through it, kudos to them. But not everybody can. Doesn't matter how good of a lacrosse player you are. If you don't jump through all these hoops that you need to jump through, you're not going to go anywhere.
Well, like you said too, even like being across the border, right? And like I've talked to people too, like, yeah, it was tough. If my dad or mom sent me money, then hey, can you send me $20? And then you're really getting 15 because you're losing the exchange rate, right? Where maybe then some people, like what Kufla is, then that could be an option. Or there's so many schools in the States, and there's even like the Kufla in Canada where there is some options of kids kind of going their own path.
And the funny thing about Kufla is they allow professional players to play, and as long as they're in school and got the grades.
Yeah, like they don't have the like not Dane Smith, like Latrell Harris. He was doing both, like playing for Brock and Rock, and there's been tons of guys that have done that, which is cool, right? You can say, hey, I can play field in school and get that experience while also kind of playing pro. And like you said too, it's kind of different of lacrosse. You're not going to make millions, or like when you hear stuff like Stephon Marbury and different guys like, hey, basketball, I wanted to make the NBA, get my parents, get them in a proper place. And that's kind of the goals. And maybe some people too, when they choose basketball, football, and sports like that, where maybe lacrosse can pick up more if they had a higher pro level of making kind of some decent coin.
I think the good thing about lacrosse is there is a higher percentage of players that get to the pro level.
Yeah, definitely.
Than say football or hockey or basketball. There's a higher percentage of players that get to the pro level. That's the good thing about it. But again, the game needs to grow. If you want to, there's the National Lacrosse League, and it's showboat cousin to PLL, where you're getting paid big dollars, but they're not as big as, like, there's guys that are making more per game in other sports than pro lacrosse players make in a season.
Like you said about I don't know if like selling, how much you get for selling an already franchise, but when they said it's about $10 million or so to kind of buy in to start your expansion team out, Josiah that year when he's doing that stuff with the Seals and with the then with Vegas, he was paying Kevin Durant and James Harden and Kyrie Irving all over $40 million to play for the Brooklyn Nets. So $10 million is not.
He's got it.
Yeah, it's not very much for him. But like you said too, like they lost Panther City last year. If there is this rumbles or ownerships for the Wings in Rochester, and let's say they had a fold, what would that mean for the league and the expansion?
Well, losing any teams,
100%, yeah.
Losing any teams isn't good for the league.
Yeah, that would be even more parity. Because like we talked about, even with the Rush, Matt Hosick was with the Rush. He then went to Panther City. The special draft, he got back with the Rush, and he's been a key part. So a lot of teams that kind of picked. I don't think anybody really from Panther City for Buffalo, but there was definitely guys on each team that contributed and kind of put that parity in the league. Nick DeMude, starting goalie for the Wings. Jason Knox played a lot and scored for Halifax. Like there was, and even more than just those three guys that kind of contributed to the teams.
Here's one for you. Do these teams choose smaller venues to play in so they're able to give their players more money?
Yeah, and that's kind of like if they have to pay $1 million to play at the Boston Gardens, and however much that the ACC was, I'm assuming that was like $1 million that they're paying like thousands to $1 million to rent it out for the day. Like,
yeah,
they're losing. They're going in the red.
I mean, you gotta. It's a double-edged sword. You gotta have a big enough venue to then you have to sell it out to be able to make that revenue to pay your players and other things, pay your bills. I get it, but I don't know how well the Toronto Rock did moving to such a small venue that they have now. But are they still above? Is your heads still above water? Are they still able to float because it was just kind of a hiccup couple of years that they had to play in smaller venues? Or are they sinking because they didn't have the revenue from a bigger crowd?
And like they talked about too, or different, things about the, Joe Size making, or like different owners, right, are worth more, or being like the NLL, Canucks or Calgary, having those NHL teams and kind of owning both. They own the arenas. So some teams are definitely losing more than other teams by just arena deals and stuff like that, where I guess that's where those players wanted the books to be open when they kind of demand different things, but they're like, oh, I understand that this team might be losing more money than this team, where Bandits are selling out and Colorado's selling out. And those guys also own the Sabres and own the Nuggets and Avalanche, so they're
here's
not
the
losing
thing:
as much.
are the Nuggets and Avalanche footing the bill for the Mammoth?
Yeah.
Is like Buffalo Bandits sell out? They sell out at like almost every game. But is the Buffalo Bills footing the bill for some of the Bandit stuff? Stuff like that makes me wonder. A team like that, could they play in a smaller venue to pay their players more?
See some stuff even with the merchandise, how Buffalo I seem to have a lot of Adidas stuff, either like players and then fans, where are they kind of ordering that? Were they ordering that Adidas stuff at the time through their NHL team with having Buffalo, and then they were kind of printing it Bandits, or even when the Vancouver Warriors came about and were bought by the Canucks, their practice jerseys were CCM with the Vancouver Warriors. So I'm like, oh, the Warriors kind of through their hockey connections, kind of getting CCM jerseys and then slapping where Peter's paying Paul, and kind of that thing of kind of taking from the one team to then help out the other team.
Yeah, I think that's how like a lot of, even down here, I know a little bit kind of works. So like I imagine it goes on up there too, like and the pros and stuff like that.
Well, look, last year when we put in a bid for the President's Cup in Brantford, we spoke to officials in the city of Brantford. And there was talk at the table. It was about the new arena that's being built in Brantford, mainly to house the OHL team, the Brantford Bulldogs. That arena allegedly is going to be big enough. One of the guys I talked to said it would be really cool with this new arena being built if an NLL team was here in Brantford. Is it feasible?
And that's where it just gets like the Toronto Rock kind of own the area kind of thing, and all that kind of thing.
How big of an area would they own, though?
No, I meant like if they're just in Hamilton or something like that.
No, I get it. There's radiuses for each team, even in the OLA. Even minor lacrosse has radiuses. The junior teams do. How big of a radius does the Toronto Rock have, and does it change when they keep changing locations?
And that was kind of a thing I remember hearing a few years back when Toronto went to Hamilton but kept the Toronto name. Like they were saying, it was the NL didn't want to lose that big marketship. I'm not gonna lie, not a lot of people know. Like Hamilton's a good place and stuff like that, but like in the States and stuff, they don't know, right? Like just like people like. So I think they were kind of like, but everybody knows, oh, Toronto. Or remember even when like an Albany kind of a guy they were at the ILA and they're like, oh, we're in Toronto, and they're like, oh no, you're in Six Nations. Toronto's that way. But
I think people, if you were to say Steel City, I think some people know Hamilton as that from the States, just because
I would
Steel's made.
But I would
Stelco.
But then this is the kicker. I would think, like what he said, Pittsburgh, because we all say in the States, Pittsburgh's the Steel City. Pittsburgh's black and yellow, just like Hamilton, like in their sports team, like the Penguins and So I'm like, which is cool. I'm like, oh, it's like a little Pittsburgh kind of. They're the Steel City, their football team and everything, but. It was like because that same year they moved, right? Albany, that smaller market, and then that Panther City wasn't really Fort Worth or Dallas, so they were kind of like, we don't want to be minor league, we want to be major league, so they were keeping that kind of Toronto name.
So that's the thing. Remember a few years back when Toronto Rock obviously is established, Buffalo Bandits are established. Do you remember when there was rumblings that an expansion team might go to Hamilton?
Yeah, wasn't everything London at one point too?
But they were also talking that Hamilton.
For NHL we're talking.
No. Well, that too.
Yeah,
it was NHL. My bad. But there was talk that you would have to pay Toronto X amount for being in their territory, so to speak, and Buffalo.
Yeah.
So again, if that's the same for the NLL, does that radius move when Toronto moves closer to Buffalo by playing in Hamilton?
And there's only a few places that are like New York that have the Mets, the Yankees, the Jets, the Giants, the Islanders, Rangers. But, like that where you have double teams, there was big obviously radius. And there was things back in the day too, they say about, even Brooklyn Nets, they kind of came in as New York. And then when the NBA started, then they had to go to Jersey before coming back years later as Brooklyn, decades later, I should say. But But 100%. Because Hamilton really was going to almost get an NHL team, right? You hear different things. I think what the guy was a guy that started the Blackberries. It's like, I guess in his little documentary, and he was going to.
Well, we saw where the Blackberry went.
Yeah, so good thing that team would have folded in Hamilton.
So I don't think Brantford, if this new arena gets built and an NLL team were to go there, I don't think they'd be in either Toronto or Buffalo's radius.
Or even Gretzky. Did you ever hear how his contract with the LA Kings when he first went there was something? If there was more expansion teams popping up in California, he'd get money from it. So he got money when the Anaheim Ducks came in, and I think even San Jose Sharks and stuff like that, because he kind of grew the game, like kind of going to the Kings, and then everybody liking hockey.
He's like a little Paul Rabel.
Yeah, and then all those guys started kind of with expansion teams, and he was getting a piece of the deal from his contract with the NHL.
And isn't he part owner of Las Vegas Desert Dogs?
Yeah, now he is. Yeah, and I think he's like kind of just a money guy, or kind of put an investment in, right? Because with Vegas, and then he owns the part of the Niagara Ice Dogs OHL team with another gentleman from Brantford, and then
it's time to look down the barrel.
Yeah, he's done stuff for Arizona Coyotes and Toronto Argos, I guess. With John, is it John Candy?
Oh, John Candy's dead.
Yeah, no, Argos. This was the 90s, right?
And back with Bruce McNall.
Buck, right? Was like Uncle Buck. Was that John Candy? Yeah. So there's a whole documentary about Gretzky and Candy and somebody else. They own the Argos for a little bit.
Bruce McNall. He was one of the owners for the Kings. Mm-hmm. But it's time to look down the barrel. Mm-hmm. Wayne Gretzky, I don't care if you're friends with the president. You should try to help get an NLL team in the new arena in Brantford.
There we go.
There you go, Gretzky. Take that one.
Yeah. And like you said, he likes lacrosse. He always talks about it in different things and stuff. And
I've seen people talk about it, but I've never seen the clip. I don't know. Is there a clip of him specifically saying something?
Yeah. He talks about it a handful of times. Like he did a whole thing obviously for Vegas, but the one thing he talked all about lacrosse was he does the TNT broadcasting with Paul Bazinet and all those guys, and
they showed him playing catch and throwing behind the back passes and everything. Like my mom has talked about seeing.
I think he's even talked about. Yeah, I think he's even talked about like, I grew up next to a reserve or Six Nations reserve, and like I think he's even like kind of even talked.
Yeah,
about
I've heard people like say about him playing or even talking about lacrosse, but I've never seen the clips or whatever it is.
Nothing from like as a kid, but just things now of him as an adult.
He was praising watching Gaylord Paulus. He had much praise for Gaylord.
Yeah. I think he got talking about it on TNT during the Brendan Montour Stanley Cup run. I don't think it was last year. I think it was the year before. Yeah, so that's kind of what brought it up. He was like, he grew up in my area and this and that.
This episode was brought to you by Beyond Pride. When you advertise with First Nations, make sure you advertise with pride. That's pride spelled Pryde. For more information, go to beyondpride.com.
We always talk, even off camera, we talk lacrosse. We run into Vale at the arena, we'll talk lacrosse. Or run into you at the arena, we talk lacrosse. And there was a couple of things came up. Probably a week or two back. It was funny because we were gonna get into Albany the one episode, and and how they are like roller coaster. They're in first place or in the championship weekend or whatever, and then they're nosedive. Are they going to come back? Are they going to dip? Are they going to go back? I don't know, but I do know that look at the players they've traded away. Look at the players they've lost. Look at the players who I won't say held out, but for whatever reason just weren't playing, even this year. And then, talks around the arena, and I've talked to some of these players face to face. Like one guy didn't want to go back because he didn't get along with a coach. He didn't want to go back. They traded one of his childhood family members and childhood friends. They traded away, and then like my own kid had a run in with one of the coaches, and I mean, probably gonna watch, probably gonna figure it out, but I ain't saying any names. But if the shoe fits, kind of thing. We saw it. NLL draft a few years ago. The same coach was going table to table, and quite literally, after the league called a player, and said, "Make sure you're at the NLL draft. You're going to go high," and it wasn't even going to go. Went expecting to go high, saw the coach going table to table to table. Kid doesn't get drafted. Player does not get drafted. Find out later from a player who didn't play in NLL this year, but has worked with this same coach at a pretty prestigious school here in Ontario. Didn't want nothing to do with him. Didn't want nothing to do with him in the league. Didn't want nothing to do with him at the school, and has told this player that basically got blackballed at the draft. Yeah, he was bragging about doing that to you. So what kind of standards do they have when they're looking at coaches? That's my thoughts. I mean, I know I'm not the best coach in the world, or I would be at a lot higher level than what I am. But in trying to grow the game, why would you do that to a player or players? Because there seems to be a pattern here that in history is repeating itself with certain coaches, and now he's chasing players away.
Like, I feel like this has been a common thing, and like, even kind of around here, that like, do you feel that like, there has ever been like certain players who have been like held back just by their own people though?
Oh, 100%. And it's a sad thing. I've been on both sides of the coin. I can admit that. I've been accused of only picking certain players when I've coached. I've been accused of not picking this player or that player because I didn't like their family. And I've also been on the other side where I'm saying, my kids didn't get picked because I know you don't like me. So what's that old Bible verse or whatever? The sins of the father are being paid onto the son, or in this case, the sons. Is that what happened? I don't know. Maybe, but I can't answer for other people as to why they do or don't pick certain players. But the rumblings are in the arena every year. Well, that team has a core group that is always picked. That player, it only gets picked and all his buddies because his dad's the coach. I've heard it. I've been accused of it. And I've also seen players, even my own kids, be victim of it. My youngest son had it thrown in his face several times. I think he sat right here and said it. People used to say to me, you only made a certain team because your dad was the coach. I'll cut my kids if they're not up to standard. They know it. They know I'll cut them. If you're not out there performing at the level expected, you're cut. I don't care if you're my kid. I'm trying to put the best team on the floor. Sometimes a certain core group, they are the better players all the while growing. Look at the 92 Arrows. That core group played together since they were 8 years old, 6 years old. Is there a core group? I'm going to say yeah. Are they picked without even being registered yet? I'm going to say no, because you don't know what's going to happen. Kid may break a leg, can't play. Family may go on vacation for most of the summer. You can't pick these kids. I've had families message me, why didn't my kid get picked? Well, was he at tryouts? Well, no, we were on vacation. I said, well, to be fair, he has to be at tryouts to get picked. You have to. And if that's an easy way also for players to not play. There's players that don't want to play on the one team or on the A team or whatever. and they will purposely not go to tryouts so they can play with their buddies who are playing on the 2 team or the 3 team, and I get it. It's totally understandable. But is it around? Is it local? Of course it is. I hate to say it, but yeah.
Yeah, because like this was kind of like, I think I talked about this last episode. It's kind of the gatekeeping in lacrosse of like when you have the power to just whisper something and potentially take something away from someone who's been working their whole life towards it, basically.
Well, that's basically what happened. And then for this coach who's in the NLL to brag about making sure this one particular player didn't get drafted just because he didn't like him or they had a disagreement in junior. Put your differences aside. Let the kid, these kids are chasing their goals. And if that's the NLL draft is basically the epitome, you're waiting to see where you're going to go next in your next level. And for this fool to go through and go table to table and blacklist this player, what's that say about that guy? Where's his integrity?
Yeah, and then like even like this, like something like that situation is actually happening kind of now. What's happening in I think it happened in basketball just recently. There was a draft, and one of the players who got drafted, the son of the owner of the team got access to the email and had basically said you got drafted to this team, and this player got all excited. He was like, really, I got drafted? And they're like, no, you didn't, or something like that.
Shedeur Sanders of the NFL had a prank call saying he was drafted, and then they were trying to figure out, because I guess it was his actual like draft phone. So the NFL was investigating it. It was the defensive coordinator for Atlanta Falcons' kid.
But like you can be fined for stuff like
that.
Right?
Yeah, that guy was, because that guy was defensive coordinator for the Jets, and then when they fired their coach interim, so he was newly hired with Atlanta as well. The dad, and he did get like a hefty fine. I think even Atlanta Falcons got fined for letting that information leak, because he's had it kind of at his house, the numbers of draft picks, and the son saw the number and went back to his college dorm with his buddies. Plus, the idiot filmed himself doing it. That probably kind of didn't help out that, put himself on blast. But yeah, he got fined. That was a huge major thing. And there was talks of maybe some other players getting that had that happen too. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders was extremely hyped, and his massive fall in the draft kind of played a big part in it. Like, most guys don't go from getting could be a top 3 pick to 5th round. So,
but like it's like the ideal of the like you're messing with someone's dream.
Yeah, no,
like
that's messed up and stupid. Like, and so apparently too, some other players might have gotten hit too. So it could have been that same kid that found the numbers and started pranking people. Because I guess he was like, "Oh yeah, sick, I got drafted," and he waited till like a team, like I think it was maybe he said, "You got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers," because they were kind of rumored to pick him. And the thing is too, that's happened back in the day too. That used to be a big prank. People would call up people on July 1st and say, "Hey, hey, this is the coach for Ohio State. I don't know, or let's just say Georgetown. I got Dave. Hey, it's Dave Urick from Georgetown. We watched you play at Hotbeds Lacrosse Camp. We really like you to come out." I've been in the room, had it done a part of. People would kind of go back and forth and a banner with like buddies sitting around.
You were probably the one doing it.
I did it once. I had it done to me once, and I did it once to somebody. I told we were like,
evil.
Hey, it's
evil
the coach
man.
from Delphi Lacrosse. We think your grades are. How are your grades? And the
how are your grades?
They're really good. Yeah. I was like, no, I know you're a lion, man. And he's like, what? And I was like, gotcha. And yeah, so I did it, but I had it done for me too before somebody was like, hey, this is the coach from, I can't remember. This is like Quinnipiac. Don't say, UNC. I know that's bullshit. So I know, right? But yeah, it was a friendly though, right? Obviously.
Yeah, but like in like these type of circumstances, what we're talking about is someone like actually
meaning to do it hurtfully,
maliciously trying to it's actually tarnishing someone's name, which brings me to the thing is like you can be fined for stuff like that. It's no different than if someone were to be like, hey, we're gonna have an election and then I'm gonna leave your name off the election and all of these things, and then no one can vote for you. It's no different. That is illegal. So, like, what we're kind of talking about is it's illegal. Well,
like that thing was a little, a little bit more too, because it was like an NFL disclosed number, right? And then the league, like that coach, kind of having these numbers in his office or something, and his kid coming in and being like, "Oh, we're gonna find this and do this." It was more.
Well, I mean that like this circumstance we're talking over here.
Yeah, I'm saying no. I'm saying the NFL. Yeah. I'm saying like he went in like those are like that's a NFL draft phone number, right? So that's like the league. I don't know if the league gives these guys draft phones or just like he had kind of an exclusive draft number because obviously they don't want to be having a buddy call him and maybe the coach calling at the same time. So
well, I did read about that specific story that there was a draft number.
Yeah,
and that was only given to certain coaches.
Yes,
or something like
so
that.
That's how they knew. Like, oh, it was obviously somebody that this was somebody within the NFL kind of did this.
Well, like I said, though, this player wasn't even going to go to the draft. He was like, I'm not even worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the NLL called him and said, make sure you're in Philadelphia because you're gonna go pretty high. And then walks in and sees his old junior coach that he had that they had an argument with, going table to table, and the guy blacklisted him. Nobody wanted him after that. And then it comes out years later that he was bragging. This coach was bragging about it, bragging about getting a player's dreams squashed. Like I said, put your differences aside. Let the kid live his dream. And the dude, I don't know if he's the same coach everybody's having issues with, but it certainly looks that way to me. And again, this is me saying it. If there's issues, give me a call. If you don't have my number, there's a reason for that.
There we go. We zipped that one out real quick.
Fucking right.
Fucking right. What else? We're going to get into some lacrosse here. So, what about the Rebels and Arrows? Because we talked a little bit about them in the beginning there, but we have to jump right into. We have to get in depth, and I need some stats from Vale over here. Now, there's a game going on tonight. Correct. Arrows are playing tonight.
Yeah, in Toronto versus the Beaches.
Versus the Beaches. Tell me a little bit about that game because apparently we don't talk enough about the Arrows.
Well, they're just kind of started up, getting it rolling.
But we need to talk about. Tell me about some of these players. What do you know so far about the Arrows? Because a lot of when I go again, a lot of people are messaging this Creators Game account and they're asking a lot about the Arrows. They're asking about the Arrows, and a lot of people are asking about the Tomahawks. They want updates. They say you got that logo up there, but we want updates. What do we guys got?
For the Tomahawks or for
I don't know both. I don't know, man. I'm just giving you guys.
Yeah, like I think the Tomahawks looks like they kind of looks like Kyle Jameson's doing a good job kind of running the team, GM, head coach, and I think I don't know if they had any wins in the first weekend, but I'm sure like kind of finding out the rosters of maybe trying to get some new players. I know it sounds like they're hosting a weekend in Brantford, so like kind of switching stuff over management and player wise, but I'm sure it looks like, and we talked in the past, junior C's or senior C I should say has more teams, so it looks like it's done a little different where not all the teams meet at one tournament. They kind of have the East teams meet one weekend in this arena and the West teams this arena. So I can't remember where they said the last tournament was it Wilmot they had gone to? Plattsville, yeah. And then
hosted by Wilmot.
Somebody today, I said, hey, when do you guys play again? Because usually I know it's around this weekend. They were saying it's next weekend in London. So like I said, their season's kind of getting rolling. They had about the 4 games in the Plattsville weekend. And
well, I there was players that I reclassified or signed off on them requesting reclassification to go to the Tomahawks. So I try to maintain that working relationship between the Rivermen and the Tomahawks because we are affiliated. I had a few talks with Kyle, and things seem to be going in the right direction. I know they're going through a bit of a rebuild. I mean, when the Grand River Warriors started, they lost quite a few players to the Grand River Warriors.
Probably a solid chunk of that team, probably about 10 guys, right?
Well, and Travis Stotts made the jump to the Rivermen. He's with the Rivermen this year, and he was their captain last year. So, I mean,
and then some guys just kind of hang them up too, right? Like family or hey, I don't have the time.
Well,
right?
and the schedule, albeit it's 4 games. See, I was talking with Jordan Durston, Rivermen last year, reclassed to Wellington Aces this year. From a work standpoint, we're playing 1 weekend a month. Kind of works out better for them, although they take a beating and might take a little longer to recover as you get older playing in that league because you're playing 4 games in 1 weekend, whereas playing Senior B, MSL, whatever, you're playing every weekend, but it might only be 1 or 2 games. So they get their season in 16 games or whatever it is in 4 weeks. They could get it in 4 weeks. but those 4 weeks are spread out, so they're every 3 or 4 weeks.
I think I think Toronto, they said still going to have Beaches still has a good team. They had a strong team last year. Obviously, there was a whole issue with them APing too many players or something, so they had to forfeit some games last year. But Arrows, Joe Squire, he's a good player. He signed with the Arrows this year. The last 2 years was on Rebels. Kenny Porter's good. I seen he's back from his thumb injury. I saw he scored some goals for the Hill Academy.
I think he just got injured, like just just recently on Sunday. It looked like
At the bread and cheese game?
Yeah, it looked like he hurt his leg or something.
Oh yeah, I didn't hear too much. I just knew he was coming back from the thumb injury and stuff like that. But
Wales are set's back.
Rails are set. It's like they have, they still have a good young core. Kind of all three of those players are third year junior. So after this year, you still got 2 more years.
I saw Big Ray Cortez out there. He's a big kid.
Coming back from St. Bonaventure, and like I said, a lot of these kids are. Well, Kenny and Wales will be going to university next year, D1, and then a guy like Ray Blaze Becker, he's a really good player, and they're St. Bonaventure guys, where Kenny's supposed to be going. So having those guys play all year round D1, getting the workouts in, and kind of staying in shape and stuff, they're going to come back. They came probably back into the season all ready to roll and in shape. And
well, the headline for tonight's game is the battle of the undefeated teams with the Arrows and Beaches, and they've played one game each.
Yeah, I know for sure the Arrows. yeah. So and like you said, they still got Thompson, right? And he's back in net, and then Ethan Robinson. Maybe he'll have a good year.
I saw him out. Yeah,
you figure he was drafted by Colorado Mammoth and got to be on the practice squad, getting an NLL game. He played Peterborough Timberman. They'll also kind of getting those grown-up shots in him all winter long. Maybe
he's a big kid.
Yeah, hell be ready to roll for the season. And I saw they had just picked up is it Tyson Sunday or a Sunday from Aqui, another good player. They got also Nungo Thompson's brothers back with the Arrows, and Lewis Alfred. He was drafted last year by Halifax, didn't play. He had actually another one of those guys like you're not too sure it was last year, this year, big kid and looks older, but he's back again on the DN this year. So there's definitely some good players and some veteran guys. Some guys have been there a good 5 years. Like I think they at least got at least 4 guys in there last year.
There was one guy because so on the day of the Arrows and Chiefs game, bread and cheese weekend, I was out there selling shirts, right? So there was and because I was out there with the people, right? They come up and they just say whatever they want to say, and they were saying we don't talk enough about the Arrows, and one of the players as parents came up and was like talking about their son and like everything that they had done, and they asked if they could come on the show.
Well, I know I was talking to a parent the other night, and one of my good friends that runs them, he said he'd help us out. So we'll definitely get some players on for sure. Like I said, we'll schedule something out, and we'll have some guys on for sure.
And it's super cool when even the parents are like, "No, I want my son on this show." And I was just like, "Oh!" And they didn't even tell me who they did. They wouldn't tell me who their son was. They didn't want to. They didn't want to say.
Then how are we supposed to get him on the show?
That's what I said. I was like, "Oh, well, who's your son?" They're like, "Oh, like I don't want to. I don't want to say. Like I know. I just know he watches the show all the time." And I was just like, "Oh, well, who is it?" She's like, "Oh, I don't want to say."
Like I said, I know the one guy I was talking to, like his kid, and his kid would be a good guest. He can talk about some different perspective of school and playing down here and traveling and everything. So he'd be definitely a good guest. And like I said, a friend that helps run the team, I think he said he'll help us out, get some guests. So we might get 3 guys on at once, maybe 1, or we can do a guy or this time and another couple players down the road.
Let's put it out there. If there's any players that want to come on the show, then reach out, because if your parents are reaching out but don't want to tell us who you are, we can't do nothing with that.
Yeah, because this parent was like super nice, loved the show. You know, they were like, "Oh yeah, like you need to talk more about the Arrows and all that stuff." And they were talking about
definitely like it's tough because we were talking more about the other teams start way sooner.
The Arrows are just getting started. So,
yeah, and like you said, it's a lot of like we talk about the rosters are finalizing, because look how we talked Saturday about have the Chiefs finalize their roster, then they go and make a trade with Oakville for Cam Wires. Just like
nobody's safe.
Yeah,
nobody.
And see, there's rumblings already that there should be rule changes and the league should step in and not allow the Chiefs to be picking up so many players.
That's what so was that like obviously we talk about super team where you joke around, but they're a very good team. It was close for Brampton. Like, you never know if
it's a light thing to say. They're a very good team.
Yeah.
They're the best team.
Yeah. I know we joked around about super team. Oh, we're not a super team. You're pretty close. But hey, if they want to get guys and guys want to come down and play here, that's all up to them, right? Like,
but the other
teams are making the trades. So they are the same teams that are complaining are the same teams that make the trades.
The other thing people don't realize is it doesn't matter how many players you bring in. You can only dress so many for a certain time. You can only roster so many, and you can only card. So, like,
no offense, like we were talking to somebody yesterday, and if you can make all the rules you want, but Dane Smith's still not going to Kohlberg, he'll just go back to PLL. Right? We were like, you're not going to, just because the Chiefs don't get him doesn't mean you're going to get him. He's going to go back and play somewhere else because he ain't going to your team. And you know what I mean? Like,
shots at
Kohlberg. Not, and not, nothing wrong with,
catch a stray.
Nothing wrong with Kohlberg, but just saying, you're not going to.
Kohlberg is minding their business.
Yeah,
there's that Cactus Jack mentality coming.
Yeah, you're just not going to, just because you don't want the Chiefs to get him, but they're not coming to you. So just don't,
Well, see, and that's
you're not good enough for Dane.
That's what I'm saying. In senior lacrosse, you get 40 cards, 40 player cards. That's it. And you can't go on SportSoft and have a look at who's registered because you can get 200 people that are registering to play for a team. It doesn't mean they've ever even hit the floor.
And like we said, like maybe they made some trades. Who says some of those guys they traded for last month are able to commit this season, right? So maybe then that's when maybe they were getting to get the D guy from this team. They made a trade. Maybe he can't come, so maybe now they got the Cam Warriors, right?
Well, come July 1st, they only can submit 25 guys. That's it. Hey,
Brampton, they had 7 NLL guys this year. That was pretty good. I thought some newer guys. I know some guys were still back, had played last year, but hey, they had, Riley Hutchcraft in net, and he's a longtime NLL goalie and stuff. So these other teams have pros, and they just got to bring their best, right? Like,
also, what about who was the team there that put Koich on the cover of that on the game day photo?
So Major Series put him on Brampton. And that's when I was like, I saw him make a whole huge major post last week. He was trying out for Peterborough. And then just last night, he was posting on Instagram. He's trying out. Kohlberg, you may not get Dean, but I think you might get Kochi. Kochi was trying out for Kohlberg Kodiak. So there we go.
He's going to lead that team.
And hey, Kochi, congrats. He's a dad to be, too. So he's got a little laxer there with his wife. And
Congratulations.
And he's still chasing the dream. So
yeah.
But yeah, and hey, that was cool for him. He was sharing, this is me, and they had him in Brampton, and then the Chiefs player was Shane Jackson, but they must have not realized that Coach's rates are kind of a free agent at the moment.
I thought that.
Do you have a spot with Riverman, or do you got some face-off guys? I don't know.
What about
he'll show up for a tryout?
Yeah. What about what's Buddy's name again? Who used to be on the show, episode 1?
JJ.
Yeah. Where is he? He plays for Allegheny, right?
Hasn't lost a draw with Allegheny.
Ooh, is he out there just killing it?
As far as I know, yeah.
Right on, man. Living the dream. Well, like he came down here to play. He found a spot.
Unfortunately, it wasn't here.
Well, they're winning out there. I don't know.
How about you got a couple face-off guys though, right? You got Kaminga, Tyson Bomberg. He takes some draws, and then you just picked up Josh Ritchie, who would have graduated over from Arrows. How'd he do? Pretty good.
There's rumblings of Aiden Fearn too.
Ooh, he had played as well for free this weekend, right? And then, or did he just dress?
He played for the Chiefs.
I saw him play Monday, but did he suit up for it? Did he? Like I saw some pictures of him in Riverman gear warming up.
He took warm up. That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha.
He took warm up. What can we expect? When is the next game, actually?
For the Rivermen,
yes.
Saturday night. Brooklyn is back. Brooklyn comes back, and
there's not that many teams in the league there, Deus. Everybody's popping back in. Brooklyn's. We're going, and then soon. When do you go to Brooklyn? Huh? You going to play the Beastie Boys
in June or something? But Brooklyn's going to see a different team than they saw the first time.
Do these leagues need more teams?
They do.
We have 6 teams in Six Nations Men's League, and then there's 5 in the Can-Am League. There's 6 in Senior B, 7 in Senior A. But then there's how many teams in Junior B? Over 20.
Well, and that's why the whole Senior C League was started in 2019, was to give graduating players a place to play, because there's 200 graduating junior players per year.
And she was even counting at the time. I don't know. I know maybe you're not the best friends with the commissioner of the league, but I like you said, give her credit. We talked at the time of the, like she was even like, and even intermediate. So she's like from junior A, B, E, C, and intermediate. These guys graduate, and then there's only 12 teams between 2 leagues, 6 senior A and 6 senior B, and pretty much to be on those 6 senior A teams, you need to be an NLL player, pretty damn close.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't know what the numbers are, but if, for argument's sake, if we say there's 200 graduating players in the whole province, and there might be 4 spots per senior B team, there's 150 players not going to play.
And then you said, too, and like you said, Masters, that's kind of why this last couple of years they were like, for the junior side of Masters, the 21 and up, they're letting guys play both senior C and stuff like that, because trying to keep that going or whatever. And but like you said, also too, like there's been Barrie, Georgetown, does almost like you said, for players liking to play maybe the 1 weekend of 4 games, is it feasible for teams that don't have to worry about renting our arena, but want like that would kind of want to start a team, but don't have the money or the bankroll to kind of be a senior A or senior B team, that they can do senior A and kind of keep it feasible?
Well, a prime example is Tyne-Denaga. They're an expansion team in senior C. And at the league meetings early before the season starts, you put in, you request to host. I want to host this such and such weekend. If it's granted, good. If it's not, it's not. But each team has an opportunity to host. They have to submit that they want to, and then you really only worry about paying arena fees for 2 days. And you're not even the home club per se. Just because the Tomahawks host at the ILA doesn't mean that they're the home team every time they play. It's just that's the host. Because
like you said, they've had Tyne-Denaga start this year. That, and I believe last year and even Guelph has started this year as well. Yep. So like they've never had, for a place that hasn't had a senior, then they got a senior C team, and Georgetown Gators, Barrie Bearcats. Like there's definitely been a lot of growth in that league.
A few years ago, there was a team from North Bay and a team from, I think, Sudbury.
Yeah, they were trying in, right? So they were the only 2, I guess, that folded. I guess.
Well, right? they've pretty much come right out and said, we will not put into host because we know nobody's driving that far to play, but they just wanted in the league. But at the same time, they still had to drive this far to come this way to play. So was it fair to them? I don't think it was, but at the same time, I was also one of those coaches that said, I'm not driving to Sudbury.
Like I said, I was just going to think, like, really have any teams really folded, but maybe those 2 were the 2 of them that have.
So senior B, I think they need to expand. Why Niagara, for example, hotbed of lacrosse players. Why isn't anybody put an application in from the Niagara region to have another senior?
Because like you said, even especially how big, like we said about St. Catharines, right? And they have their junior B and junior A in their minor, and we know all those other Niagara centers, the 40-Eries, the Niagara on the Lakes, they all try to at some point get the St. Catharines minor. Plus they draw Cattaraugus, Tuscarora,
what about Lincoln
and Buffalo.
Yeah, Lincoln's
around that.
Yeah, Lincoln is too. Yeah. And that's what we got talking about, that Alex Simmons guy. I was saying how I think back in the day he used somebody's address, so he never had to play for Lincoln, even though he lived in Smithville. He always, like how some of those guys, they all try to get to St. Catharines, so it's a hotbed, and then they don't have seniors, so it's a big drop.
I'm sure there could even be a Stony Creek team.
And at the same time, there's really no residency stipulations in senior, so
like you said, our guys like Orangeville, there's been talks. They have no desire having a senior team. It sounds like when you talk to Orangeville people, or kind of those heads over there.
I think what Rosie had said was, will the support be there for a senior team with so much support going into junior A and B and now C?
Yeah. So
I think there would be.
Why wouldn't there be?
I mean, we got 4 junior teams here, 4 senior teams, a women's senior team. There's support. A lacrosse fan is a lacrosse fan is a lacrosse fan to me. There's the supports there.
And then now back to Orangeville and the Northmen. I invited the documentary people to come on the podcast. They put out the the Northmen doc. I guess what they're calling it.
Did you finally come out then? I've seen like some talks of it through the years.
So
like the last 2 years.
they
for
put out
sure.
a post today, and I guess it comes out next month. And I just invited them on. I said, oh, Rosie kind of came on and talked a little bit about it. You guys are more than welcome to come on the show, kind of deal. And then they said they would love to. They'll bring on the production company or the director or whatever. And they said they would come on after the screening.
Yeah,
so that's
cool.
like within the next couple weeks.
If you're watching, we should be invited to the screening.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I want to go to a screening.
Where is that supposed to be? Did they say?
I'm assuming it would be in
In Orangeville? Yeah. Do it in the arena.
So it was funny because at the Chiefs game, I hadn't even realized that Dale was set up there, and
this guy's popular.
Oh, here we
Holy. Oh,
So
no! Wait, let me just tell a little story first. Just a little story. So I'm sitting out there all day, trying to sell T-shirts. Doing my best. I'm like, hey, yeah, here's what we do. Here's what the podcast. Here's what it's about. Here's our objective. Here's everything, right? A little couple sales. This guy sits down. All the aunties get googly-eyed. They start looking twice. I'm like, they're not looking at me. They're not looking at me. This guy is something else. This guy is something else, man. He's just like, I don't even think you talked. All you did was just go. And I'm talking about the shirts in front of you, but you were just like.
I believe it was.
Yeah, this guy's a great salesman.
Pulled the Vanna White.
All he said was, and sales came.
There you go. Keeping us in business.
All day I got was a couple of kids playing in the hallway, and the ball come flying down the hallway and bounce by the table, and all he got was, see, you're never going to get on a podcast if you can't even catch a ball.
Yeah. Well, those see, I got the kids. The kids are like, they're cool. They just want the stickers and all that stuff. But this guy, I was out there for 3 hours, and got a couple sales, but sit down and this guy, little smile, little charm. All the aunties just start looking. I'm just like, what is going on?
I said
here?
nothing, Vale. I said
He
nothing.
didn't say anything. That's the problem.
Nothing.
How many kids
That's
you
how
get?
he tells them all come out to the Riverman games too, right?
Yeah, come out of the Riverman games.
As soon as they said anything to me, I would just say, talk to him. I don't handle none of this.
And then I would do my spiel, and then they would eventually purchase something. But it wasn't until this guy was just, and that's all it took. That's literally all it took.
Even got us another booking, or got Dea another booking at the Confederacy Challenge tournament here on Six Nations this weekend.
Yes. So if you are watching this will be out tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be Friday,
The 23rd.
The 23rd. So on Saturday, we'll be down, or I don't know if you guys are invited if you guys want to come, obviously, but I'll be down there selling some T-shirts. We're going to have stickers, all that stuff down at the kind of, what's it called again?
The Six Nations Sports Memorial Cultural Center.
Six Nations Sports Memorial Cultural Center. I'll be down there at the tournament there. So come buy some T-shirts. Here's one of them right here.
Come and get Vale's autograph.
You going to come down, Vale?
I'm supposed to be playing in Fergus this weekend, but give me some T-shirts so I can probably sell some out there for you.
I'll send you some T-shirts.
People always ask.
What kind of crowd do you think that you draw?
I don't know.
Let's go there, Vale.
I met a nice guy, gentleman today. They were Tuscarora Junior B team. That was cool. He was like, hey, he was a nice guy and stuff like that. And they're having a good season and stuff like that. I talked about how they beat the Fire the other weekend and stuff like that. I thought it was a big
So
one.
you just draw all the lacrosse dads.
Or he was a kid, yeah.
Oh, he was a kid. Okay.
Yeah, he was on this Junior B team, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, what kind of crowd do you think you would draw? If you sat there next to me and we sold T-shirts, who's coming up?
Everybody.
Everybody?
It's all good.
All right.
It's that Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, Macho Man thing he's got going on there. That's what it is.
You dirty dog, you.
Yeah.
All right. Do we got anything else? Because we have a time limit tonight.
We'll just, Jay, don't run the guys too hard tonight at practice. And tell them, can't let Brooklyn come to the barn twice to beat us. We got to take them this time.
That's not happening. Like I said, they're going to.
There's no damn you, Deacon. You got to score on
There's
them.
going to be a whole different team now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not letting any secrets go. Anybody can go on the SportsSoft app and look at our roster.
Oh, there we go. We might have to do that
There's
after.
a plug. There's a plug.
Indubitably, and I don't even like SportsSoft because they won't let me see my own roster.
So you probably can't even see it then.
Other people on the executive can, so I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
I'm off to Newtown tomorrow. Allegheny versus Newtown. One son plays for Newtown, one son plays for Allegheny. We're just trying to hope the son that plays for Newtown is able to actually go play because he has work commitments. Saturday night, Rivermen are at home. Sunday night, we're on the bus to Collingwood. Mitch from Collingwood, if you're watching this, why would you schedule us a game on a Sunday at 6 p.m. in Collingwood? There's your plug. But it's a weird time on a Sunday, honestly.
Like a place like that would be nice for a Saturday, and then you can make a weekend out of it, right?
Well, I was going to make a weekend out of it, but I forgot that Brooklyn's coming to us. I was going to, if we were in Brooklyn, I was going to go there and then shoot to Collingwood, stay the night, get up, take my fishing pole, but it's just it is what it is. That's how the schedule played out. But we're back in.
Did
Collingwood.
You tell those guys don't get the Collingwood
in July or June or something?
They don't get the Collingwood flu Sunday night, and everybody shows up.
Collingwood flu, is it?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that one.
No.
Oh, there's the Brooklyn flu, there's the Collingwood flu, there's the Owen Sound flu.
I even had to tell a player last year, don't get the Kohlberg flu, and he's like, "Oh, that's what I heard."
The Kohlberg flu.
Yeah, going there on a Sunday night.
Ooh,
That's usually when all the Rivermen guys get the call up. Hey, we need you.
Yeah, basically long road trip on a Sunday. Nobody wants to go.
Oh, okay.
So can't make it. I'm sick. Some of them might be legitimately sick. I know that I do have one player that's been out with a wrist injury because he took quite the beating going to the net every shift, but he's still a gamer.
All right, we're going to do predictions for the Arrows game and Chiefs game. Let's give some predictions before we wrap up the podcast.
I'll pick Arrows and Chiefs. I can't remember who the Rebels play tomorrow, but like I said, I think they got to keep it rolling. They have 2 losses in the season and beat St. Catharines Athletics twice, so I can see them even winning tomorrow no matter who they play.
What do you think they're going to win by? We know you're going to pick the Arrows and the Chiefs, but you already picked them. But what are they going to win by?
I'll say Chiefs 12-8.
Okay, Chiefs 12-8. Arrows
9-6.
Okay. What do you got?
I was going to say Arrows 8-6. Chiefs, I'm going to give them 14-6. But Rebels, I don't know who they got either. I mean, they've had a lot of games this week. I just hope that they get their players back.
Like I said, their regular season's done June 15th.
Yeah, they've squeezed in like 10 games already, so they're doing okay. I'm gonna pick Bandits this weekend as well. I'm gonna say 14-12 Bandits.
I'll go. I'll say 12-10.
See, I think it's going to be a blowout. I think that I think Bandits are going to show up for their fans, and it's going to be like 14-3.
Also, a tidbit of information. If you guys are always on social media, which I know you are, you look at the Can-Am standings. It appears suddenly Allegheny has 2 losses, even though they've went undefeated this year.
Who did they lose to?
Did the Warriors get 2 forfeit wins, or what's going on?
What's going on?
No, I don't know. I'll have to see.
All I'm going to say is check social media.
You'll have to tune in next week.
Yeah, I did kind of look at that too. I didn't even catch that one.
Yeah. Someone's using some medicine over there, getting some points. Until next week, this is the Creators Game Podcast. We're out of here. Peace.